So welcome back again. And we are seeing the results of our poll. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to vote. It's actually kind of surprising because some of us were talking about team communication, and yet our poll is 75% at the moment towards practical project management experience. So we'll keep it on that sort of tack. So for that, during the next little bit, I would appreciate then, since we're going to do our practical project management experience, we're going to use Google Documents for that because it's kind of an easily accessible platform that many people already have. And I had hoped that everyone participating herein might already have a Gmail address or get one in preparation for today since it's free. If you might text me your Gmail address, and that will help us to organize a few little teams around a shared document. And so what I'm going to do is just start a little discussion about some of the emerging project management approaches and the extensive vocabulary around project management, and also some overlapping concepts that happen around project management. I'm just going to take a moment to look at our chat as I see two new messages have developed here. Okay. Interesting. So I really like to see the comment there that there is a robotics team, Brightspace. It's alongside the courses. And then there's a Discord used to manage the team. Discord not being the ideal because the discussions in Discord can be lost. Very interesting that way. I'm seeing some accumulating Gmail addresses coming up here, and we'll probably develop into two little small groups. And with those shared Gmail addresses, we'll create some shared documents for our exercise.
I have a question. I have a question for Peter. So you're using Brightspace, and that's with school provided emails. What do you do with your, sorry, I have my camera on, but close. What do you do with your mentors who are not part of the school? So for example, if 5024 was using Brightspace, I wouldn't have access to that.
Yeah, right now we don't have that luxury of having outside mentors, but if we did, it would find a way. We could set up a generic account, consider them an EA, in which case they would have some privileges, but not the teacher privileges that would provide them with access to more confidential insights. When we do set up the course, there really isn't a whole lot of information kept there, other than completion of some of the FIRST Robotics safety courses, the micro courses that are UL and FIRST Robotics, and also the FIRST Robotics bronze safety badge. We track those.
Right.
And you know what we're starting to do this year. This year we got a little bit more organized because of the work with the Everybot robot. So we set up a unit, if you want to call it that, with Everybot stuff in it. And whenever something new has been contributed to the Everybot, something tried and failed. We track our failures as well. In fact, we're setting up a broken wheel award in one of our competitions. So we actually broke a wheel, and another team donated a replacement wheel for us, so we can continue with the competition. And so we have that in a plaque, being awarded to those who break something and then come up with an effective solution.
So how is Brightspace different, or in your opinion better than using Google Drive and Google Docs and everything that comes with Google Drive, which is what we do?
Yeah, last year we were in the Google environment, and then the school got rid of it all. And they've actually locked things down so that we don't have access to any Google stuff other than your own Google accounts. And for professional reasons, we do not use personal email accounts, either ours or our students. And when we communicate with parents, that's okay. But but each of our students gets a laptop now, So running Onshape is not a problem. They have access to Brightspace, but some who are on the reserve don't have reliable internet or no internet at all. So
Right.
under those circumstances, there's still a challenge in reaching everyone all of the time. So there is still going to be some lagging in some quarters, and unfortunately, it impacts the most vulnerable more than,
of course, always. Yeah.
than others. Yeah. So
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
yeah. Again, our IT guys are really into lockdown mode, so you know we get our knuckles wrapped all the time for doing things that who gave you permission to do this, who gave you permission to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
So we're trying to soften them up, and you know they have softened up a little bit. Got a few new people that have more of a service orientation in mind. So I think that's really very, very helpful for us.
So that's a most interesting discussion. There are lots of issues, and I think they're very important to consider. Whatever communication platform you use, school boards have come up with some of these rules with very good reasons about who can communicate with whom and under what conditions and with what technology, as hacking and student security and privacy issues are all lurking at every corner. So that's something good to keep in mind. I have very little to contribute that would overlap with everyone else's experience, I suspect, as my team was managed on WeChat, a Chinese chat platform, for 5-6 years. And the principal language was mostly Chinese. We did gravitate towards English if possible, but that's just what happened. And so it's really curious for me to learn about how everyone else has been doing this. And in other projects, I've dealt with both Slack and Discord, and I'm fine with those, and they seem to be okay. I find that a challenge, sometimes you get too many platforms going on and just staying able to respond in a timely way to Facebook Messenger and Slack and Discord and several email accounts and so on. So that can be another issue. Just a little practical consideration. I see most of the emails that come through there just as a little manner of sorting through these restrictions. It is possible that maybe some of your school board accounts may not allow for sharing. I'm not sure. Maybe students' accounts are different than others. I work with students sometimes who just can't share things on Gmail through their sort of school board accounts. And so I hope that your submitted Gmail accounts will be able to share past any possible restrictions. And well, we'll see what happens here. Okay. It is a tall order to address the topic of project management in such a short time. So I think just a very short practical experience will just give us a picture, practically speaking, of what it means to manage a project. And not to say that there's any one way to do this. Every organization, as we've already mentioned, is different and has these different regulations to deal with and professional considerations and the like. Let's go to the project management section of our discussion for today. And we can speak a little bit about some terminology. And maybe there was a reference earlier on about Scrum. I can't tell because that was a comment from over an hour ago. Some of the terminology that I've encountered through my work with FIRST Robotics and with computer programming classes or computer science classes, Scrum and Kanban are two agile project management techniques or frameworks that have appeared. That doesn't mean they're the only two. And this is a whole big area unto itself. Going back to the development of Scrum, it has its origins in the computer software industry, where they discovered that rapid iteration of a nascent final project or product, rather, it becomes a very potent way of shipping software. Using the waterfall technique, if you find out after 8 months that one of your fundamental assumptions has to be changed, you have to go all the way back to the top of the waterfall and go down it again. Whereas when you already have a nascent final product, it may not do everything you want it to do, but it starts, it runs a little, and it ends in some way. Then you can keep building on it. And you can also incrementally develop its functionality. And of course, that works very well in the world of software, where there's a lot of flexibility as to incremental changes being made. In the world of hardware, that's not always possible. Toyota Motor Corporation, though, discovered after some time that being a little systematic about how time and effort was spent on a project reaped very, very strong rewards. And so they developed this Kanban system, a system of, say, Post-it notes or cards that were indicative of the conditions within a project. A notable example thereof being a bin of parts used on a production floor, which, when it was empty, the worker would find a card inside that bin and bring that card over to another area of the company where they would exchange the old bin for the new bin full of new parts. And then that would initiate a sequence of events through the supply chain to generate more parts as they ran out, allowing for just-in-time production of the manufactured goods within Toyota. Scrum, being a software framework, has more recently been applied across the board to services and or manufacturing, and with varying degrees of success. And if you go into the internet, it's a veritable sort of cacophony of different views and experiences with all of these kinds of techniques, and it can take you quite a long time to sort out. Some people are saying, well, you can't do true Scrum unless A, B, and C are true, or unless you get this certification, or unless you have this specific thing happening. Others are saying, well, you just take and pick and choose from one or the other. It's a very complicated topic, and I'm sure there are lots of things to be said about every part of it. So with that in mind, we're just going to get a little bit of a taste for this today, and not necessarily thoroughly and exhaustively explore these topics. And hopefully we'll prepare ourselves for just a brief little project management experience and see how that goes. So a few things that we have already talked about today: this waterfall approach versus the iterative approach, and the obvious example or advantage of iterative approaches being the shortened timeline of the feedback loop, allowing for systematic and continuous adjustment of the product. I think a good example of this iterative approach in manufacturing is the Tesla company, that is very famous for having up to maybe the number is 27 changes to a model's design, even every week. Whereas the traditional approach in automobiles has been, well, we'll change that in 4 years when we roll out a new base for this model. And you can see the obvious advantage of making updates and improvements every week versus every 4 years, for example. Okay, so a few things that are used in project management: the storyboard. The storyboard in my classroom used to start out as a physical whiteboard, which we would sometimes use whiteboard markers, or other times use Post-it notes. You have to really get good quality Post-it notes, because dollar store Post-it notes tend to end up in a pile on the floor. So whatever you do with Post-it notes, get good ones. They tend to work, but don't get stale ones, because if you get too many good ones and try to use them in 1 or 2 years, the glue is no longer good and it's the same story. So using a physical whiteboard is all well and good until you get a pandemic. And that's what happened. We were in the middle of our final projects in our classes when the pandemic struck, and we, in 24 hours, switched from our physical Post-it note boards all through the classroom to Google Drive. And maybe I'll just give you a little experience with that this afternoon with a mini project that we can do. WIP, work in progress. In Scrum and Kanban, we have different terminology for this, but there's this sense of how much work is any one individual working on. And one of the principles you want to see is that we're working on a limited amount of work at one time. I see there's a hand up. Sorry, I missed that. I don't know how long that hand was up, so we'll just let Tom jump in here.
Yeah, because you were touching on storyboarding, I put together a storyboard for FRC that at some point later, maybe you'd like, I could share it with the team, but I just thought I'd mention that while you just crossed that subject, okay?
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. It's really rich when we are able to share our resources like that. So this a storyboard to which Tom is referring is a set of these tasks that are to be done or that are being worked on or that may have been completed. And these little post-it notes are moved from one column to the next, or little notes or color codes are moved from one column to the next in a online spreadsheet. Whichever way you do it, you're tracking visually and together all the work is in progress and limiting the amount of work being done by any one individual, but also getting a sense as to how quickly the collective work is being completed. So our backlog is the set of things that haven't been done yet on the storyboard, the work remaining to be done. A sprint is a time-limited, very systematic approach to doing a set of work, especially within Scrum. So we may have a week-long sprint, or in Tesla, we may have like an hour-long sprint. They work a little too fast for many people's comfort. And at the end of that, we reflect and we redirect and we reprioritize and do it all again. And hopefully at the end of each sprint, we have an incrementally improved working product. Even though it's not finished, it may have a nascent quality wherein it's a kind of getting closer to working each time. A retrospective is a reflection that we hold at the end of each sprint to say, how did that work? What can we improve? And so on. And a burn down chart is just a little chart. It's like a reverse stock market chart. As it's tending downwards, the number of outstanding tasks tends downwards. My students have spontaneously made their own burn up charts. They like to see stock charts going up rather than down. However you do it, you get a sense as to how quickly your work is being done. And that the slope of the chart then is the velocity of your team's completion of tasks. And it turns out after a while, teams get a sense as to how long a predicted task is going to take and how to manage that with a time focus in Scrum. In Kanban, we still have these working and finished and still to do tasks, but we don't focus as much on the time as in a continuous flow of work, working and focusing on one thing at a time until it's done. That's our project management terminology. Maybe we can get really quickly into how to make that all work. And entire books and industries have sprung up around these terminologies here, Scrum, Lean, Kanban, and etc. Much more for later times. So we're going to just do a mini thing this afternoon. I already mentioned Kanban briefly. I'm tending a little bit quickly here because I want us to maximize our time in our actual project and then reflect on it later. So Kanban has these charts. It's not as much focused on time as the tasks at hand and a continuous work. So as workers finish a task, they go to the board alone and maybe move the tasks from one column to another. Whereas in Scrum, we have something called a regular stand-up meeting where we very briefly stand up if we're physically there and figuratively stand up if we're online and consider what was completed, move something to the completed column and get new work, and then identify any blockages to that work and find ways after the meeting to address that. All right, the Scrum is a project management framework with specific roles as opposed to Kanban. The Scrum Master is kind of like a coach for the team that's working, a team of maybe 5 to 8 people, plus or minus, who are working on a task together, often a interdisciplinary team. In some companies like Tesla, you'll have a financial person and a legal person working along with the engineers so that at 9 o'clock in the morning, they identify the need for a new material and a new part. They get financial approval right away by the machine required to work the part, start writing the patent for it, and start engineering that part so that by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that part is actually in a car on the assembly line. Maybe not that quick, but that's the kind of pace that they're trying to achieve. We have these storyboards and burn down charts and scrums and sprints of specific time length, maybe 1 week or 1 hour or 1 month or something like that. And of course, we reflect at the end of these. There are numerous ways that you can compare Kanban versus Scrum, and I'll leave that to your personal sort of homework to look into these various ways of organizing teamwork like this. I think suffice it to say, when we revisit some of the principles right from the beginning of our session, whatever we're doing, in order to keep a group of 25 students engaged, you want to organize the work in parallel. And the way I did that in my classroom was perhaps not the best way to be strategically the most winning team. Thinking of the engagement of my students as priority, we always tried to do all the functions of the robot, not because we wanted to do the best robot, but we had 25 students, and having each one of them work on a team of, say, 5 and a module of the robot kept everyone engaged. And so that's how we did it in our teams. Okay, and now we will come to the preparation for a brief project management experience. I hope through this experience, we may have 2 teams based on the size of our group today. Each team will choose a topic. It could be from anything this afternoon, building a team of mentors, the principles of human interaction for organizations, or organizational schemes like pyramid or networked sort of org charts. So we select a topic and then make some tasks and then create a little document. So I'm going to stop sharing for the moment here and just get us set up. And here we go. Get into my Google Documents here. First of all, while I'm setting it up, I'm going to paste for you a little link to get you the spreadsheet that we'll be using. So you can just take a look at it. Please don't edit it right quite yet. I'm going to make a tab for each of the working teams here. Here's our chat. Oh, thank you. There's some work about Trello, and there's a nice tool with project management resources. On top of that, we also have Miro, which is another one. Whoops, I just accidentally answered that to Tom. I'm going to put that to everyone here. There we go. So there's a link to our little spreadsheet and a list of tasks. And so I'm going to share that in a moment, but I also would like to share this document with everyone. So I'm just going to take everyone's emails and copy them into this shared document to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So that should be shared with 3 of you so far, and a few more now. There we are, and everyone else should now all be on the document. And now I will share the document, and we'll get a sense as to what we'll do here. So sharing the screen now. We have just a very modest set of tasks to approach our little creation of a document. So to summarize our learning today, the challenge will be to create a 1 or 2 page document with a team that has some of these sort of things about it. It should be something useful. Our product owner in this case will be the FRC community, even though they won't be able to directly interact with it. We'll have to imagine that part. we're tasked with creating the most useful and good looking document that we can, so that it can be a resource available to everyone else. I'm going to duplicate this tab for team 1 and team 2. There we go. And just delete this one. Okay, so now team 1 and team 2 both have this document at hand. We only have a small amount of time and a small number of participants. So your challenge will be then, we will break into 2 breakout rooms, and I'll maybe drift between the 2 breakout rooms to see how things are going. And you'll have an initial stand-up meeting. And here's how we can make the stand-up meeting. I'll use the template as an example. Let's say I'm on a team with Paul. So I'm going to say, well, during this next sprint of 10 minutes exactly, I'm going to be working on getting a logo for our item. And maybe Paul will be working on the graphics. He thinks maybe during those 10 minutes, Paul can create all the graphics. And since I'm only getting a simple logo, I might cheat and just use some kind of logo generating machine. Maybe I can also write one of the paragraphs. So that's what I'm working on. We want to limit the work in progress and keep it coherent. In principle, you might only be working on one task, but we also have to try to get this done in 2 little sprints. We're only going to be working in this document for about 20 minutes. So we can have someone create and share a Google Doc with the edit permissions. And maybe as a note there, you can put a link to it so everyone can find it. And then you can create this Google document. You actually have to select a topic that's not listed as a task here, as that's something the whole group will do at once. Maybe a topic that's of most interest to the whole group, something to do with project management or team management, as we discussed this afternoon. And then once we've filled in all of this, who's working on what, after 10 minutes, we'll hold a little meeting. And maybe we'll do that together in the room and see how our 2 little stand-up meetings go. And then we'll go back into our breakout rooms and complete 10 more minutes and see how much we can do together in 20 minutes times 4 people, for a total of 80 minutes working on a document in a little team. So let's suggest now that we will break out into some breakout rooms, and I'll give you about 5 minutes to assemble around this topic. Hopefully one of you will be able to conduct the meeting and have everyone choose a topic to complete. Once you've done that, we will work for another 5 minutes, or sorry, another 10 minutes on the actual work of researching and compiling the document. And then we'll take a pause and have our second stand-up meetings in the group together and just see how far we got. And then we'll continue. So here we are, Project Management Challenge. Let's see how quickly we can learn a little bit about iterative project management by a practical little experience. So I'm going to create some breakout rooms now. They will be random. Okay. There, I've got 8 of you in the different rooms. I haven't assigned Paul. Maybe you can also drift in and out of the rooms and just see how things are going, Paul. And what we'll do is 3:16 now. So let's allocate 5 minutes plus maybe 2 minutes just to find our feet. So let's allocate till 3:23, be a little precise with time. By that time, you should have had a little stand-up meeting about who will accomplish what. And you also have time, about 2 minutes, to decide on a topic. And after that, then we'll have 10 minutes, I'll send a message to work on the actual topic till 3:33. At 3:33, we'll come back together to see how things are going. So with that, if you have any questions, you can come back to the main room. I'm going to open all rooms, and there are 2 rooms. Room 1 has Gianna, John, Mike, and Tom. Room 2 has Eleanor, Kirsten, Peter, and Ram. And we'll see you in the rooms there. I will maybe send a message to everyone to reiterate what I just said, because I know it's hard to follow the details. And maybe I'll just repeat it once right now. Let's have 2 minutes to decide on a topic and 5 minutes for each of you to choose at least one of the tasks on your team's spreadsheet tab. And then we'll have 10 minutes to actually work on those tasks. And then we're going to come together and see how that all went and have little stand-up meetings about how the next part of that process will go. I'm going to say the same thing in a text message to everyone as soon as I open the rooms.
Do we automatically connect to the room?
I think
I see it join now. Got it.
good.
That link, that email you sent with the link to the first video was only 20 seconds long.
Okay, I think that's the most recent one. There are several in my inbox. I just was walking up the stairs and I saw it, so I'll see if I can get the rest of it to you.
So I can't visit those rooms, eh?
Oh, I can assign you in there.
As a co-host or something.
Okay. Okay, so maybe I'll assign you into a room if you like. There's Paul assigned to room 1. I'll see if I can let you there for a few minutes and then take you to the other room. So I'll see you there. I'm going to go to the other room and then we'll switch around and we'll see. Is that good? Okay. Here we are. We're about to stop the rooms. They're doing a countdown. They're doing pretty well. They've got a document already halfway done.
Good, good.
Well, they're hanging on to the bitter end. They're working hard. They're sprinting. Gave them an extra minute by accident because I forgot there's a 1 minute countdown. So here we are back in the main room. It may have been a rather jarring trip from one room to the other, maybe in mid-sentence. That happens. In sprinting, not track sprinting, but project management sprinting, there's often a hard stop with the time, whereas in Kanban, it just sort of continuously flows. And there's a reason for that. We just keep the team sort of committed to shipping a product at the end of a time period. And so as close as we can manage, that's as we go. So what we'll do now, as our time is short, maybe we'll share the screen and have group one do a little stand-up. All you do in the stand-up is three things: what I was working on, and if I'm done, what I'm going to work on now. And third, was there a barrier to working on it that we could solve outside of this meeting? That's all. So we'll go to sharing screen, and here's our team document again, team one. And we can begin with Gianna, whose name appears first.
Oh, I never should have put my name first. Okay, yes, I created the Google Doc and everyone on my team is able to access it. And I did create a title, although I chose not to underline it. And that's all. I did accomplish those things. In terms of the paragraph 1, 2, and 3, the barrier here is simply a lack of time. And it's interesting because this is a great topic that you've got me engaged. I want to delve into this.
Can you share our document?
Sure, that'd be great to see the document as it is so far. I already saw one of the documents because the link was there, and it's doing pretty well after like 5 minutes work. Is there a way to get a link to that document? Maybe it could be shared in the chat.
Let me see if I can do that. Oh, you have to stop sharing your screen, William, so that I can share.
Okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to hold that for a moment. We'll let Tom, Mike, and John just do their part and say what you were working on. Are you done? If so, what are you going to work on next?
So my part was to create a logo, to share some graphics, which on the document, you can see I put 5 different possibilities down so we could start to discuss, a direction to take for refinement.
Great. Well, that's good. Anticipating multiple possibilities. And so are you still working in that or done?
Done.
Good. Okay. So now in a large project, you might have a lot to choose from right now. The only thing left for Tom to choose, if he's not done yet, is summary of at least 3 key ideas. So in theory, John would put his name now there. Although I see paragraph 1, you've already put your name there. So that's fine. Oh, sorry, I'm mixing up Tom and John. So that was Tom rather. And so Tom could put down the name at working on the 3 key ideas. There would usually be more choice in this case. So we can hear from Mike.
So I wrote a short call to action. It's a first draft. It was added to the document for people to take a look at.
Great. Thank you very much. At this point, since Mike is finished, and if there were more tasks to do, that would be added on. And in fact, Mike could say, oh yeah, we also need a breakout box for something or something or something, contact information. So he could add that as number 14, for example. Let's have some contact information. And then we can hear from John.
So I wrote the first paragraph, basically for highlighting the issues that we have with our topic. It's a start. I think I would probably, so it's a start. I only wrote 2 sentences. That's a start. I would probably expand a little bit more with examples of where the problems are, as opposed to the topic, what the problems were. So a little more expansion. So it's not done, but it's a start.
Great. So at this point here, we'd also have like a burn down chart, which is like that stock market sort of ticker graph. I just made a very crude one here, % complete. I just measured the cells that are empty and not empty and did a percentage. And so you can see we're perfectly on track. After one sprint, 50% of the tasks are complete. So in theory, we're halfway to making our document. Of course, that's a little, oh, look at that, already 52%. In theory, that works. In practice, it means, oh, look at that. Oh, that's how you make your numbers look good for management. Oh, we're almost 50% done. So, yeah, you have to be careful with that and realize that approving something takes a little bit different than making a nice paragraph and making the document look great. But you see the idea of where we're getting at. So maybe we'll take a look at the document. I'll stop sharing my screen and see if we can share that on the screen now.
I also have a question because none of us were quite sure. The summary of 3 key points, we didn't know what you meant by that. How does that differ from the paragraphs that we're writing?
Well, luckily, I'm not your teacher. I'm not going to give you a failing grade if you misinterpret it. But I had in mind, often documents will just have a summary. Here's the 3 main things, like the can't read now, we'll read later kind of thing. You just give 3 main points that are further elaborated in the document. So. Well, that's great. Look at that. Lots of little graphics in there. We've got a call to action. Got a paragraph coming up here. We've got a title. So pretty good after just a few minutes of working together. And I suppose now we can go to the second team and see how that's going. Team 2. Let's start with Kirsten.
Okay, so for team 2, I made the document and set up the structure, and we were more discussing things as we went. And as people had ideas, they put them into the different areas. And we were looking at gathering team resources, be it fundraising or mentors or in-kind donations or using parent resources as well.
Nice. So you've got a few things underway. You've already done at least one of them. And that's the create and share a Google document. So are you still working on lines 3 and 4 here, Kirsten?
Eleanor ended up doing the logo. I'm at the moment of there's so many screens within screens. I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the document.
That can be an issue as we're doing this pretty quickly. Usually we'd have an onboarding how to use Google Documents and things like this. So a valiant effort in very short timelines. And there we are. And there's a live update. And that often happens. Well, Eleanor ended up doing that. So we can just correct that. And it's not about who did what. It's just like, that's what happened. That's great. Because task A may have taken all day and task B might have taken 5 minutes. And we get better at measuring that over time. So now we see some live updates happening as Kirsten has updated what she's done. And now we can hear from Eleanor.
Okay, so I'm not sure, other than I'm still struggling to kind of find our focus, which isn't super unusual for robotics. We're sort of scattered across.
After about 5.5 minutes of discussion.
Yeah, because you got expertise in the room and you just want to have a conversation. Yeah, so I was looking for just some links and so forth to where to research or, semi-curated collection of resources. So
excellent.
Yeah, I don't know, trying to figure out what goes where. I guess, I don't know if it's a paragraph or it's not a call to action. Just a little bit of mentor stuff and a little bit of fundraising stuff.
Great. So you're working on that. And I suppose you're still working on graphic 2, are you? As it's
Graphic 2, I think, is in there. It's not a good one though. I don't really like it.
Okay, so it's not quite done yet.
Yeah,
And
it's just a nasty old thing that's grabbed. But yeah.
And I guess we can hear then from Ram. You're working on paragraph 1 according to the chart here.
Oh yeah, and actually it's a perfect exercise. I'm a slow starter, and plus I don't have much confidence myself, and I'm not really too sure what I'm doing. So in a way, it's perfect experience. Because from my experience with students, indeed, if they're not too sure what they want, what they're supposed to do, and if they're not told clearly what they do, they get in the next minute they're on their cell phone, and you lost them. And so yeah, that's what my experience. I picked pick something small, and I started once I get going. I started to type some stuff that was in my head from the presentation.
I think this is a really good point that you raise, Ram. Like, say you're now new to the team and you're not sure how the team does its paragraphs or does its graphics. Typically, in a project management situation in a manufacturing facility or in some project management team, you often have 2 or more people working on the same task as a small team. And it could be in pairs. And there's a good reason for this. Like, say there are people assembling part of an engine, and there are 2 people working on it. Not only can they hold up parts of it while they're working with it, if one of them happens to be away one day and then someone else new comes, then at least one person on the team already knows how to work it and can continue the work as a new person is sort of naturally onboarded. So we work in these small teams. Today is kind of an artificial exercise to give us a big picture idea. So if I had more people and more time, I would have put Ram with someone else, and then we feel supporting each other together. So that was just a response to your comment there, but really great so far. I see you're working on paragraph 1. If you were done, then you just put your name here and we continue on to Peter. Were you able to grab a topic, Peter, from our initial very few moments of collaboration to get a topic? Or rather a task?
Peter, you're on mute.
Maybe Peter is muted. So we're not quite hearing from Peter at the moment. Maybe we have a chance to hear from him later. So now I would suggest our time is very short, so I'm going to give us 5 more minutes instead of our 10 more minutes to finish off our product, and then we'll wrap up our whole session at the very end. So let me just start our breakout rooms for 5 more minutes. Yes?
I did ask whether I could share a storyboard about.
Oh, sure.
If that was possible.
Was this in the chat?
No, I've got it. I can share my screen.
Oh, sure. Okay.
It says right now I can't share because someone else is participating.
Now I think you should be able to share.
Okay. All right. Okay, can you see that?
Nice. There we are.
So I was trying for an outside organization, trying to give an encapsulated version of what happens in FIRST in just 6 weeks, from a kickoff meeting at the first weekend in January, where the kids are brainstorming along with the mentors and trying to come up with, and you can see my whiteboard in the background here showing them, different ideas they threw on, crossed out, and finally, oh, this is what we want to do. That's it. So now they're busy building it in the team workshop and assembling things together, and the mentors are kind of trying to support them, and the kids are going like, how does that go with that? Sort of, prototypes are built. Then of course you move to the venue, and I was trying to explain that there's 11 venues in Ontario and hundreds of teams across the US, and it's a 3-day event. Then of course you set up your pit area, 10 by 10 area. You prep your robot, do last minute tests, you get them weighed, approved, measured, and the alliances are selected, and you're ready for rock and roll. Except you don't always win. So you notice the robot got knocked to pieces.
Oh no.
And your team's going, oh no, how did that happen? But I explained about the 15-second autonomous period, teleoperation, And that competition is fast and furious with winning strategies favoring good alliances. And then, of course, you reward the winners at the end, but judges, we give out 15 different awards, you know, to recognize many, many different aspects of how it brings a team together. And then I was explaining, you know, the history that goes back to '89 and Dean Kamen with Woody Flowers, how in Canada it was 1998 when Mark Bredner started it in Scarborough, and we had the first competition in 2002 at the Hershey Center. And the fact that they're now in 2020, there were 3,900 teams, 34 countries, and 270 from Canada.
Oh, that's great. Well presented. So thank you so much. That was a really nicely done sort of.
And that was using a storyboard tool that is, you know, if you use it quickly, you can do all this for free.
And that kind of links to what we're doing here in a way. We're producing documents, and that storyboard is a great document. It has great graphics in it. And just to distinguish, in project management, the use of storyboard is a little different. The storyboard is the list of stories, which are tasks. So this each team has a tab in our line, or in our document, which is a storyboard. But it may be that we are working on storyboards because we're working on little visual documents with graphics. So just to be careful about the application of that timeline. That was a really great resource to onboard people, and the graphics really sort of accented the meaning of what was needed. So maybe we can just take a look at Team 2's document before we do one final little sprint to the finish. Oh, wow. There's a lot of development that already happened. I'll just share it here as I see it on the screen. Here is Team 2, got some graphics here, got a table of contents started, section 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally resources. So my final challenge to you before we wrap up our session, let's have one final sprint to the finish of 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of reflection and the like. So our breakout rooms. And we'll start. So there we go. Almost finished our first day. I don't know if you have any reflections or suggestions so far as to what's happening.
Is there something this evening as well?
Yeah, tonight there's going to be a coding session run by someone associated with 1114.
Oh, right.
And we'll see how that goes. I'll be on hand and jump in if it's not complete or something like that, and offer some more interactive stuff or some kind of just filler in case. But apparently he's got all 6 hours planned out for tonight and then tomorrow.
Wow.
And then I have Ian McTavish coming tomorrow evening to do our CAD session, the more advanced Onshape stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Busy times.
Yes.
So we have a rookie team that apparently signed up from Blythe in Blythe Academy in Whitby.
Nice. That's a potential of 10 teams, as Blythe is McDonald's of Ontario private schools with over 10 locations.
Well, I think there's one was one in Ottawa.
There was one in London. The pandemic kind of did that one in, but hopefully there'll be a few more left, because that could potentially be 10 teams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's gonna start moving fast, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, snowball rolling down the hill is about to start again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. I'll have to edit this part out.
What's that? Oh yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Anyway, it has to be edited out as they're kind of in their breakout rooms. So
Mhm. Yeah. That doesn't take long. The longest is getting them uploaded.
yes, they are quite sometimes.
They get lengthy. Yeah, the interesting thing about this Blythe school is that it's in Whitby, but that guy who's listed as the lead mentor lives in Newcastle, which is just where Bob moved to. Bob
Oh.
wanted to still stay involved, so I just sent him a message to say, "Oh, by the way," so, "Oh, this is good news." So.
Nice. It's always great to hear of new teams coming along. So
Yeah. So there's another one. That girl at Baroque. It's been working with 1360. I said, okay, now you got to get the teachers. She said, I got teachers. Okay. Send me the names and we'll get them going. So we'll see if that works.
Oh yeah, Burr Oak. So you heard from Burr Oak?
Just the same kid.
Oh, Samiksha and Yvonne. Yeah. I was talking to them. We had 3 or 4 meetings in the last 2 months. One of the teachers just reached out to me. So we're.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I got an email today from Pat saying this is where they're standing.
Good.
From 1360. And I said, okay, the next step is for them to have the teachers start the team.
Yeah. So we're getting
and then get started on the stuff that needs to work. They need to work on, right?
Great.
So we'll see.
I'm going to close our breakout rooms. There we are, and we'll see what happens. So finally, welcome back once again to everyone. And hopefully we get just a very brief introduction to the sort of workflow. I chose Scrum over Kanban as I'm a little more familiar with that one. And perhaps there's a different way to illustrate Kanban over time. Our time is limited though, and hopefully this just gives you a few ideas from this afternoon's discussion about how to manage a FRC robotics team, from fundamental principles to practical considerations and season timelines, project management techniques, technology platforms, and all of that. A tall order in just a few hours, but it was really great to hear everyone's contribution to the discussion, as it was a very rich discussion and great contributions from everyone. At this point in our project management, we would go through another stand-up meeting and continue iterating our tasks. But at any given time, we do have a nascent complete document. Like here, this document may not be complete, but you can see all the elements of the complete document are here. There's some sense of style. There's some sense of organization and a little bit of writing and some resources. So all the required elements are there, just a little showing up all of the things are required. I don't have the other link. I would show that as well, but you get the idea from our work here. So well done to the teams. I just have one little final request before we finish. And that's a retrospective, and that's actually something that we do at the end of a sprint. We reflect on how did that go. So you can do that at the end of the sprint or the end of a project, or in this case, at the end of a 3-hour seminar on team management. So I'm just going to share that in the chat. And if you would just take a few moments to fill this out, 3 very, very brief questions. What went well? What didn't go well and could have been improved? And any suggestions for future topics? And that will really help us to get going. So there we are. Just wanted to clarify from Tom, there was a comment here at 3:16 this afternoon, a bit nebulous. Please give us a parameter boundary. That might help. Maybe it's a little too late now, but maybe there, I'm not sure exactly to what.
Too late now, forget it.
Okay, sorry about that. It's hard to follow the
Fair enough.
The conversation as we went. If there are any questions, though, please feel free to reach out by email, and we'll be happy to continue working with everyone. So with that, we're very much looking forward to working with all of you this year, and hope all is well with you and your teams. If you need anything, please contact us here at First Canada. Here are just a few little items of suggested reading from our discussion this afternoon. I haven't read the first one. It's just like a sort of filler. You may want to look up Kanban. That's all I'm saying. I have read the other 2. I actually helped edit this book by Joe Justice, a really interesting individual who has worked with Tesla, Microsoft, Bosch, and a host of other very interesting organizations. And this is his seminar now in book form. And he's actually iterating it as not quite complete product, but each version is getting closer to a final product. And finally, here's the Reinventing Organizations. It's just, that's just a brief summary. I think someone already sent a link to the website for that book. So thank you very much to everyone. Really great to see you all. I see Jenna has a hand up.
Yeah, this is actually a direct comment to Eleanor. I sent you a direct message, but I'm not really familiar with how that works. I'm not sure if you saw it.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so William, when we're finished here, is it possible to leave this open for 5 minutes? If Eleanor has 5 minutes, I could just have a quick chat with her.
Sure, for sure.
Thank you.
That's great.
Oh, I think it must erase stuff because my chat is almost empty.
Oh no, actually the chat, it doesn't preserve between breakout rooms and main rooms as far as I know. I don't know if that's what happened.
Yeah, it's empty.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that, I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and we'll hope to see you all very soon. And if you just take a few minutes to complete that little survey, it'd be most appreciated. I'll leave the call open. I'm just going to turn off my camera and mute. I'll probably go upstairs and come back down in a little bit and turn off the Zoom call. I'll stop recording now, though. And